We need to acknowledge the vulnerabilities in the system that this inquiry has exposed.
How was Elizabeth Wetlaufer able to murder 8 people? At times, she worked the night shift alone, overseeing 99 patients with no oversight. More staffing and funding among the recommendations to fix a system that allowed the serial killer nurse to go undetected. There are systematic vulnerabilities in Ontario's long-term care system. That is part of the findings in a report released today, outlining recommendations focused on how to prevent, deter, and detect healthcare serial killers. Megan Fitzpatrick now with more on how we protect our vulnerable seniors.
After 2 years of work, Justice Eileen Gillese and her team released a lengthy report that's aimed at answering 2 key questions. How did Elizabeth Wetlaufer get away with murder for so many years with no one noticing? And what can be done to prevent her crimes from ever happening again?
I thought, well, she must be the next one.
Through its investigation, the inquiry found that had Wetlaufer not confessed to her crimes, she would not have been caught. Gillese didn't assign any individual blame, but found a number of weaknesses in the long-term care home system that allowed Wetlaufer to carry out the murders. To fix those weaknesses, the report makes 91 recommendations. Many of them are aimed at long-term care homes, the College of Nurses, and at the Government of Ontario. Among them, create a plan to raise awareness about healthcare serial killers, study whether there's adequate staffing in nursing homes, and provide funding for homes to put glass doors and windows in their medication rooms. It also suggests homes limit their supply of insulin and the use of nurses from temp agencies.
What you'll see, for example, at the back,
Gillese wants the government to provide free counseling to victims' families, many of whom were in Woodstock today. She says they've suffered greatly and that a lot of harm was done to the broader community too.
So yes, the offenses are personal tragedies for the victims and their loved ones. But to suggest that the harm caused by the offenses is limited to them is to fundamentally misunderstand both the offenses and the scope of the harm that they caused. These offenses are tragedies of substantial public interest, and they demand our collective response if we are to prevent similar tragedies in the future.
Gillese said she hopes today's report will help the families heal. Some family members said they're optimistic today's report will lead to quick changes.
I think instead of a year, it should just take 6 months. Like, let's get this party started seriously. 1 year, come on, I waited a year for the inquiry, I waited a year for this. Let's get going, fellas, let's get going, ladies.
The government's Minister for Long-Term Care, Mary Lee Fullerton, was here in Woodstock. She told the families they will get funding for counseling for the next 2 years. She also promised funding for some of the report's other recommendations, but she didn't say how much. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Woodstock, Ontario.
You can find more on the recommendations and our exclusive reporting on the Wetlaufer case online. Just head to cbc.ca/Toronto. There will be an inquest to examine the circumstances of Sammy Yatim's death. 18-year-old Yatim was fatally shot by police on a TTC streetcar in 2013. It sparked a national discussion about the use of force. The province says the inquest is mandatory under the Coroner's Act, but a date has not been set yet. We knew who they were, but police have now released their names, confirming that a Markham man is charged with killing 3 generations of his own family. The victims are 70-year-old Firoza Begum, 50-year-old Mumtaz Begum, 59-year-old Monariz Zaman, and 21-year-old Melissa Zaman. Police said the cause of death of all 4 has been determined, but they won't release the details because the case is currently before the courts. Police arrested Menhaz Zaman and charged him with 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths. A friend told CBC that Menhaz is the son and the sister and the grandson of the family, and sources say that he sent online messages about planning to kill his family several months ago. Police continue to search for the 3rd patient to go missing from CAMH in a month. This time, he's a man with a history of sex offenses. 45-year-old Anthony Murdoch was last seen in the Queen and Ossington area on Tuesday afternoon. CAMH says he was on a staff escorted pass on the property when he disappeared. Murdoch was found not criminally responsible on a sexual assault charge in 2002 and has been convicted of forcible confinement and sex assault. He was also found not criminally responsible for an indecent act in 1998. Police say he should not be approached if spotted. CAMH has been under scrutiny recently after 2 other men walked away from the center. After those cases, CAMH announced an external review of its protocols. Police in northeastern Ontario confirmed today they have received calls of possible sightings of 2 men wanted on a Canada-wide manhunt, but they say none of those sightings have been confirmed. The OPP say they got calls on 2 possible sightings, one last week near Iron Bridge, the other near Kapuskasing this morning, when they got a report of a suspicious vehicle driven through a construction zone with 2 men who had similar descriptions to Cam McLeod and Briar Schmigelski. Meanwhile, today the RCMP announced they will begin a phased withdrawal of search teams from Manitoba after no new signs of the fugitives.
While the search in northern Manitoba is being scaled down, it is not over, not by any means. I want to assure everyone that the RCMP is continuing to work on this investigation and will not stop until there is a resolution.
Even before the teens were identified as suspects in 3 homicides in northern BC, they were on the move east. Once the car they were driving was spotted on fire outside Gillam last week, police moved in en masse with drones, dogs, and military support. But even with a door-to-door search of every home and abandoned building in the area, the suspects could not be found. The search area is remote, swampy, and bug-infested with few roads and little traffic, but plenty of wildlife, including bears. Police can see the suspects may not have survived the wilderness conditions, and they remain concerned that it is possible they may have had some assistance in fleeing the area. The Trump administration says it will allow Americans to legally import cheaper prescription drugs from Canada. It could save patients in the U.S. money, but there are concerns it could cause drug shortages here in Canada. We'll have that story for you in just a few minutes. Toronto's Caribbean Carnival is heating up ahead of Saturday's Grand Parade. Tomorrow night, the Carnival's king and queen will be crowned. On Friday, NBA superstar LeBron James will be in town for the party. I met with the Carnival's chief operating officer to find out about the big changes this year.
It's great because we decided to make some changes to enhance and to deal with some of the issues that we normally have every single year. The key one, storming. So in the Caribbean, when you go to the carnival, you literally have a lot of real estate, roads and streets to go in and out. In Toronto here, over the last few years, we've had a tunnel where people will come out of the exhibition grounds, circle the grounds, and then stand up just waiting to go on stage. So the spectacle used to be the stage, and that's all the activities. This year we decided to create zones to avoid people from just going onto the stage and to enjoy the festival on its own. So the big piece of it is we have about 4 to 5 zones. So where we're standing here right now is Zone Central. Okay. It's the VIP area, it's the beer tents, there's a whole aspect that's being built here right now.
There's a stage here too.
The stage is here, and we're building the biggest stage they've ever built in Canada. It's 154 feet long and 60 feet wide. Wow. It's a structure, it's a building literally.
We had some issues with the storming at the Raptors parade, and people are looking to you guys saying, how you do that? So will there be barriers along the roof so people don't do that?
We fence areas because we want to control movements, let people know exactly where they should be, where they should not be.
What other measures are being taken to make sure revelers are safe? Because anytime you have a large crowd like this, you have issues. You have one guy can mash it up for the million that's here enjoying themselves.
True. And we have a number of sessions that we work closely with Toronto Police Services. We had a training session yesterday, literally letting us know, the security know exactly what they should do, what they should look for. But this is a fun festival. It's all a festival of joy. That's literally what it's all about. So for safety in terms of where people go, we have information telling them exactly what they should do, how they should act, and obviously we work closely with the police. We have security officers in the particular area. We have a few things that we want people to understand. We want them to respect the mask, respect the carnival. So we have hashtags out there, respect the mask.
If you want to play mask, buy a costume, join a band.
Join a band. Don't jump into the band, don't jump the fence, respect the people, don't carry any weapons. We don't want you to do that, and no means no. Literally, that's what we're looking for this year.
What keeps people coming back every year is the question, because most of the people here aren't actually from Toronto, they're visitors to our city. What do you think you keep attracting people from the UK, from America, from Europe every year to come to this festival?
Carnival is addictive. Carnival is fun. No, think about Carnival. It's joy, happiness. Some people come not just to see the carnival, they come to see family members they haven't seen for years.
Yes.
You may think that the carnival is, let's come sit in the bleacher and see parade going by. That's not what it is all about. It's about people going into the bleacher area, people going into the park area, sitting close to the water. I put my tent up, my food. We gather together. We go into the beer tent and we have fun for the entire day. All the kids run around. There's so much happening here. It's just family fun. It's a lot that happens in the carnival every single year.
My final question, if I can get into the VIP, I don't want to pay, what's the best viewing area if I just want to come down and chill with my family and watch the parade?
The thing about it, if you're on the outside, you have the crowds to deal with.
Okay.
You're on the inside, you have less people to deal with. It's up to you what you like.
What you like.
Listen, we want this to be free, and we want people to come in and pay for what they want to enjoy. It's for the families, for every single person. The carnival is an amazing thing to happen. And we have a number of events. This year, we have 2 events that we didn't talk about. On Friday night, there's a Friday night mass. It's night mass before the carnival starts. It's all glow sticks and stuff. It's happening right here in lot number 853 along Princess Boulevard, and it'll be circling in that area. That's the night mass that's taking place. We have a rum fest this year also in Ontario Place happening on Sunday. And that's something new also. So there's new events that's taking place.
Something for everybody.
Everybody has something to
52 years strong.
Definitely.
Hopefully we'll be back talking to you for 53 after a safe parade this year.
It's gonna be safe, as usual, every single year.
Thank you, Chris.
Good.
Now, Carnival is always a big draw for American tourists, but there could be another reason for Americans to love our country. Today, the White House announced a plan to let Americans import prescription medication from Canada. But as Katie Simpson tells us, experts are raising the alarm about possible drug shortages.
I've been at this 25 years, so I'm pretty used to it.
Kimberly Hansen is one of more than 4 million Canadians living with diabetes. Since she depends on insulin to live, she's worried about the possibility of shortages if the U.S. goes ahead with plans to import cheaper Canadian drugs for American patients.
We're really concerned that given the small size of the Canadian marketplace relative to the U.S. marketplace, this could cause shortages for Canada unless Health Canada takes careful measures.
The Trump administration announced today it will consider proposals on how to safely import lower-cost drugs from Canada and other overseas markets. For years, Canadians have paid less for some prescriptions, including insulin, because of government regulations that don't exist in the U.S.
So we need to come up with a strategy very quickly to be able to respond and potentially restrict the exportation of medication from Canada to the U.S., and to do so before things pass in the United States and we're no longer in a position to control it as easily.
Is Canada's drug supply in jeopardy?
Hello, pleasure to see you.
The Prime Minister didn't answer questions today, but in a statement, the Health Minister said she will work with experts to better understand the implications for Canadians and will ensure there are no adverse effects.
It could take years before any new plan is approved, but the reason this is being announced now is U.S. election politics. Health care will be a deciding factor in the 2020 American vote, and Donald Trump is trying to get an edge on some of his opponents. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Yesterday we told you how an owner reunited with their pet snake after he was lost for more than a month. They brought him home, but turns out this isn't him. Coming up, we'll tell you more about this case of mistaken identity.
Jeff, were you listening? Did Taylor just say mistaken identity?
You know what? That was so good, Dwight. That I love that.
You did like it. Eh? All right, we'll give her a pass on that one. The weather also good though, Jeff.
Well, the humidity has come down, Dwight. So right now we're actually sitting at 26 degrees downtown. Also at the airport, much more comfortable conditions. So I factor in the Humidex right now, 28 downtown, 30 at the airport. We look at our Humidex chart and those values are actually no real discomfort to speak of. Maybe a bit of discomfort again when you get into that 30-degree threshold. But it wasn't too long ago we had Humidex values in the low to mid-40s. That's all changed. And here's why. It's because we've got a trio of high-pressure systems working together. They're also acting as a shield, deflecting systems to the north and to the south. It's bringing in drier air and sunny conditions as well. I put this forward 48 hours because there's really not a whole lot to talk about. Calm conditions, sunny conditions, and that will persist for the next 48 hours. Talking about tonight, a north wind is going to press down our temperature to 14 degrees. That's actually below seasonal, but dry. We were just talking about it with that drier air mass as high pressure begins to sink in. Tomorrow for August the 1st, 27 degrees, a southeast wind. So at times that wind will be coming off Lake Ontario and Dwight. It's going to feel 30 degrees. Coming up, your carnival forecast and also your holiday long weekend forecast.
You know I'll be down there partying. Thank you for that, Jeff.
See you in a bit.
The Toronto International Film Festival is just over a month away, and today the festival announced its full Canadian lineup, more than 24 feature films. Shauna Reid has the details.
The Toronto International Film Festival has announced its full Canadian lineup. A total of 26 feature films was announced, as well as short documentaries and long. Now, we did get a chance to see some of those films, including a zombie thriller featuring an entirely Indigenous cast that comes from Mi'kmaq director and writer Jeff Barnaby. Indigenous films are also taking a bit of a spotlight this year. We saw a wide range of stories coming from Indigenous filmmakers, including some about Indigenous women dealing with domestic violence to stories about Inuit life in the North. And nearly half of the films at this year's festival are directed by women. We had a chance to speak with one of those filmmakers, Semi Chellis, who is bringing the story of Patty Hearst to life in American Woman.
I remember seeing movies by Patricia Razuma and Lynn Stopkowicz at TIFF when I was at the beginning of my career and being inspired, but they really were like the female filmmakers that I'd ever heard of or been near, and they were few and far between, and it's so great to see the vast differences that there are in women in the movies women are making.
And we are also seeing a number of big veteran names. Adam McGoyan is back with his film, Guest of Honor, an unlikely story about a food inspector in the city of Hamilton.
This is the food inspector who's English and feels he's from somewhere else. He interacts with all of these restaurants, which are mostly ethnic restaurants as well. So it's really dealing with this notion of the diversity of our fabric, but in a very unexpected way, I think. So it's very much a film for this moment in our evolution as a country.
And the Toronto International Film Festival kicks off on September 5th. Shauna Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
Monty has a stripe that continues down his head, and Sneaky Pete here has a stripe and a dot. So see, his stripe stops and then it turns into a dot. So we're like, oh my God, it's not the same snake.
Sneaky Pete, really? All right, so case of mistaken identity, Monty the Python turns out to not be Monty at all. So who is this mysterious snake? And where's the real Monty? Tonight we tried to shed some light on this story for you. Okay, so yesterday we told you the story of Monty the Python. He's an 11-month-old pet snake who went missing last month. The mystery seemed to be solved late Monday when a python turned up in an East End sewer grate. Authorities got him out and reunited him with his owners, but now the owners say the snake may not be Monty after all. Taylor Simmons has this update.
Come on, Petey. Sneaky Pete.
Late last night, after taking the python home, Sam Sinella says her 18-year-old son, the snake's owner, noticed it acting different than usual.
He said, Mom, come downstairs. I go, I don't think this is Monty.
They also noticed the snake had a different pattern.
So then I knew, oh no, it's a different snake.
Sinella's son adopted Monty in November, a non-venomous ball python. He went missing mid-June, but seeing pictures of Monday's snake capture at an Esso station, Sinella thought they'd found him.
And I thought, well, of course it is, because how many pythons are running loose in Toronto?
At least 2 until Sneaky Pete was found. According to the city, they found 28 stray snakes since January 2017, more than half of them ball pythons.
They are just gentle, sort of little snakes that don't mean any harm.
Earth Echo's owner Paul Collier says that's because the snakes actually make great pets, but
they have to be very secure. I mean, any animal can escape, but snakes in particular are very good escape artists because of their shape.
yeah, this is their pet, Monty the python, and this is the one that they picked up.
Okay, it's not the same snake. No.
How can you tell?
Oh, the patterning here. The other one has spots all the way down the center. It's just different color mutations of the same species of snake. And it was found like 3 kilometers. That's a long way for a snake to travel.
Okay.
You know? So I would say that the snake is probably still in the vicinity somewhere.
Collier has worked with reptiles for 35 years. He says these types of snakes aren't dangerous to humans. The city says pet snakes can't be venomous, more than 3 meters long, or present an undue danger to safety. Owners are not required to license them or even report them missing, but it is encouraged.
He's not so bad, and he's actually quite beautiful. And
Sinella says she's offered to take care of Sneaky Pete, but the city plans to send the snake to a reptile rescue. Meantime, Sinella hopes Monty will soon slither his way back home.
Monty could be in the basement laughing at us.
Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
A major grocery store chain works to cut down on single-use plastics. I'm Lorenda Redekop. Come January, when you're leaving a Sobeys store, the only options will be paper or reusable. The store is also trying to cut down on these plastic fruit and vegetable bags in favor of these reusable ones. So what's behind the shift, and what could be next for grocery stores? I'll have that story coming up.
You've heard of dash cams, body cams. Well, now Halton Regional Police have side cameras on their cruisers in an effort to crack down on distracted drivers. I'm Ali Chiasson. I'll have that story coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
In the past few months, a number of major companies have moved to get rid of everything from plastic straws to shampoo containers. Now, Sobeys is announcing it's getting rid of plastic shopping bags. As Lorenda Redekop reports, the grocery chain has a plan to cut down on other plastics, too.
Plastic won't be an option soon when you leave a Sobeys store.
We're removing 225 million plastic bags from our Sobeys stores across the country.
Come January 31st, your only choice will be paper or a reusable bag. The chain says customers were demanding less plastic.
I think it's a little bit behind the times at this point, but so it's about time. But yeah, I think it's great.
I think in order to save our environment, we should be implementing it, given that this is a first world country. We should be a leader.
Sobeys is also trying to reduce the use of these plastic fruit and vegetable bags in favor of this reusable style.
So customers will have the choice to come in, purchase this bag, and then use it hundreds of times. It's made from recycled plastic water bottles. It's machine washable.
This environmentalist sees getting rid of bags at the checkout as just step one.
I'm not sure how much of an impact they really will have. When you walk through the grocery store, you're going to still see aisles and aisles of packaged food and lots of plastics everywhere. So we really need to see the grocery stores taking steps to deal with packaging on their food all the way up the supply chain.
The federal government has said it will ban single-use plastics in 2021 at the earliest. Other grocery stores, including Loblaws, charge 5 cents for plastic bags. This retail expert believes other chains will now follow Sobeys' lead.
And this allows Sobeys to get out in front of the competition and sort of wear the good guy hat in terms of being the first one out to eliminate these bags.
And he believes with opinions shifting by consumers and investors, 10 years from now, companies will produce much less plastic. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Earlier this year, 2 provinces, PEI and Newfoundland and Labrador, banned single-use plastic bags. Shares of Sobeys' parent, Empire Company Limited, fluctuated all day on this news, but closed at the same price it started the day, just under $35 a share. Meanwhile, the TSX dropped close to 59 points, and the Canadian dollar finished at just over 76 cents US.
Remember, it was really hot. We didn't have air conditioning, so we had to have windows open. And the smell of garbage was extremely pungent. As the weeks went by, it just got worse and worse and worse.
Oh, you remember this. Coming up, can you believe it's been 10 years since a month-long strike brought Toronto to a smelly standstill? We'll take a look at the lessons learned a decade later. But first,
a passionate plea here at Toronto Police Headquarters from a group of mothers who have banded together to make a difference. I'm Angelina King. I'll have more on why they're asking for police to help in their communities. That's coming up.
A man has been arrested in connection with a stabbing at the Beaches Jazz Festival last week. It happened on Thursday just after the opening night of the festival. 27-year-old Dylan Can was out walking his dog when a man approached him and started asking him about the dog. When Can tried to end the conversation, the man stabbed him multiple times. Residents in the Beaches neighborhood have started a GoFundMe campaign to help Can get back on his feet since he'll be off work recovering for the next few weeks. 19-year-old Michael Job is now facing multiple charges, including attempted murder. A passionate plea to Toronto Police Services Board today. It came from a group of Somali mothers who want help to end violence within their community. Most of the mothers have lost children as a result of violence. Angelina King is live outside of Toronto Police headquarters for us tonight. And Angelina, you spoke with members of this group, and you talked to them about why they wanted help from police.
Yes, exactly. They say it's all about working together to just make Toronto a safer place to be, as well as engaging with young people. And they really did seem to impress the board today. They came with some concerns, but also some solutions. As one mother said, she chose to move to Canada. She chose to move to Toronto, but now she is tired of seeing the young people in her community, in her family, being enveloped by violence. So they came here today to share their stories, but ultimately to ask for peace.
We want our kids to grow up to be respected Canadian. That's all what we're asking for.
Sham Soelmi lost her son to violence 4 years ago. She's part of a group of mothers searching for answers for an entire community.
It's not only him he died, his whole family, whole community died with him.
They are speaking about public safety in their own language.
The Somali mothers call themselves Mending a Crack in the Sky. Every Saturday morning for the last 4 years, they've been meeting, supporting one another and discussing solutions to end violence within their community. They know it's a complicated issue and want to work with police.
We're hoping that like this meeting, we get progress in our community. We make our neighborhood more safer. I would like to share with you.
The group is particularly concerned about gun violence, saying it's a crisis. In the last 5 years, the amount of gun violence in Toronto has generally gone up. In 2014, there were 104 shootings that resulted in 13 deaths. So far this year, there have been 230 shootings that killed 18 people.
No one has communicated to me about my son's murder.
The mothers want there to be more transparency and trust between the community, and they also want to see the role of a mother outreach worker implemented. Police Chief Mark Saunders says their concerns include a number of social issues and wants to ensure they're looked at thoroughly.
They have been heard and they will be heard, and I look forward to working with, and the board has acknowledged that they're going to work with as well too, which I think is critical.
So the board wants the mothers' concerns to be discussed with various groups, including the anti-racism and mental health advisory panels. Then they'll start working on a memorandum of understanding to work in partnership with the mothers. A report will come back to the Toronto Police Board at its next meeting, which is in September.
Angelina, before we let you go, also on the agenda today, the idea of added security at places of worship in our city. What would that look like?
Right, so it could be in the form of a task force, which would be made up of members from the Toronto Police Service, the OPP, and the RCMP. They would kind of share ideas as well as some information about potential hate groups that would have potential threats on places of worship. Something similar is being done in the United States. So members of the Jewish community came to headquarters today to tell the board that they are more concerned for their safety than ever before, pointing to attacks on places of worship abroad that have happened recently. They say that they would like to see some type of police presence or security at places of worship during busy times. Now, the police board says, yes, this really is a big concerning issue. So now they will be putting together a report, kind of looking at how they're dealing with this right now, as well as how feasible a task force like that would be.
Angelina King at Toronto Police Headquarters for us tonight. Thank you, Angelina. A 48-year-old man is in critical condition tonight after he was shot multiple times by Brantford police officers. The province's Special Investigations Unit is now looking into what happened. They say officers were called to a home around 10 this morning for a man in distress. When they got there, one man drove away. Officers followed him to this parking lot. That's when the SIU says he got out of the van shortly after the officers shot him. Here's what one witness told us.
When I looked again, yeah, he was out of the car with the knife. The cop told him to drop the knife, and then he got tasered. And then after he got tasered, he was getting up, but he was all messed up from the taser. And then that's when I guess he was still holding the knife. Cop told him to drop it 3 times, and he didn't, and they shot him.
Alice Costa said he heard the man ask police for help before. He said he was shot 4 times. The SIU has assigned 6 investigators and 2 forensic investigators to the case. Halton Regional Police have begun to deploy side camera technology in their vehicles as a new way to crack down on distracted drivers. Police are excited to have this new technology, but privacy experts aren't on board. Alicia Sun explains.
They're positioned at roughly head height if you were standing there. There's no special enhancements in these cameras. They literally see what you would see with the naked eye. There's no infrared technology. There's no additional zoom. It's meant to provide the same view you would have as a human observer inside the police vehicle.
Even if you just turned your head?
That's exactly what it is. The way the system works is the officer on general patrol, if they witness an offense, they're able to activate the system to then capture that audio and video stream. The way the system works, it's always buffering a 30-second video only prior to the activation. So the example with the side camera would be an officer can be driving down a 2-lane road, for example, look out their side window, observe someone perhaps committing an offense of distracted driving, texting on their phone. What they can do then is pull in behind the vehicle to initiate a traffic stop, and then the second they activate their lights, that's one of the things that activates the system. The system would come on, immediately begin recording audio and video moving forward, but it would also capture that previous 30 seconds where the officer made that initial observation.
What we see from our window here, we're able to just capture that on our video recordings. Yeah. That is huge evidentiary value because quite often people will deny the fact that they were on their phone. Having that video information is that much more helpful to us because it's then disclosed in court to show this is what I saw and the video confirms these observations.
Because otherwise it's just the offender's word against yours
sometimes? Exactly, right? We have to prove beyond a doubt in court that what we saw, to convince whether it be the judge or the justice of the peace, that our observations are true.
We do not want to live in a surveillance state, and that's where this is taking us.
Right, so that is a common perception that it does exist in the public mind. I can say that with our program, we have designed our retention periods based on the level of severity of the video. And so we retain video only to the extent that we need to, and then upon reaching the retention period, the video is deleted.
Naturally, they get a little nervous when they think about, okay, more cameras on police cars. Is this just more surveillance?
Right. I think that what needs to be relayed to the public is that we're not operating the cameras all the time. It's not always recording. It's only being recorded for the purpose of actual evidence that's going to be collected. The purpose of this information collection is only for that and not to just run a constant stream of video.
Earlier I went like this. I almost felt like I was going to fall over. It smells pretty bad. You wouldn't want to know.
Imagine all the most disgustingest smells you can possibly think, and it's all there.
Get back to work! Clean up our city! Clean up our city!
I would like to again thank Torontonians for their extraordinary patience and commitment to our city during this lengthy and unnecessary strike.
Toronto is marking a very smelly anniversary tonight. It was 10 years ago that garbage collectors went on strike, leaving trash piling up for weeks at parks and skating rinks around the city. As Philippe de Monti shows us, the strike had an impact long after the garbage was gone.
For Torontonians, there's no forgetting the summer of 2009. With garbage collectors on strike for more than 5 weeks, many city parks turned into garbage dumps. A feast for rats and raccoons.
It was gross. It was pretty gross. Yeah, it was pretty sad to see considering we're such a developed city.
I remember it was really hot. We didn't have air conditioning, so we had to have windows open. And the smell of garbage was extremely pungent. As the weeks went by, it just got worse and worse and worse.
But it wasn't just garbage. Also on strike, the workers who kept swimming pools and daycares running. More than 24,000 city staff fighting for higher wages and to protect their benefits. Toronto's mayor at the time, David Miller, blamed the economic crisis for these difficult choices.
The recession, the increasing demand for city services, and the limited revenues of the city.
Some frustrated residents like Connie Ellis White took matters into their own hands.
There's a couple of people that we changed ourselves up to the fence and we wouldn't let the trucks in or out. I was hoping that the mayor would have come down to talk and see if we could resolve something. He just didn't give a hoot.
Torontonians have been through this before, 2002, and that one lasted about 2 weeks. So Torontonians are bracing for what could be another sticky and stinky summertime strike.
And they weren't having it. All that frustration might have helped Rob Ford get elected as mayor the following year.
There was this idea that public sector workers somehow were continuing to see increases in their pay and wages, while the rest of the people working had insecure jobs and incomes that weren't moving. So to scapegoat the public sector, I think, made a lot of sense in that moment. And so it opened a space for Rob Ford to make specifically that argument.
Over the course of his mandate, Ford abolished job security for blue-collar workers and privatized garbage pickup west of Yonge Street. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
A recently completed major renovation at a downtown Toronto police division was marred by years of delays and disputes. Tonight, the Police Services Board saying problems often come with projects of this size.
Anytime you renovate, you're going to run into problems, particularly when it's an older building like that one. And we got what we wanted in the way, within the price we wanted. So it worked out.
A report into the troubled renovation of 52 Division was presented at today's Police Services Board meeting. Work at the division near Dundas and University began back in 2015. It was a huge project with the building essentially being revamped. But the report says the general contractor failed to provide adequately trained workers and supervisors to the job site. That resulted in delays. During the course of the work, records show that 6 separate construction liens were placed on the property to ensure companies were reimbursed for their work. Nice shot of your skyline. Lots of boats out there in the water tonight. Stay with us. Jeff will be back after the break with a look at your long-range forecast. We are back in just 2 minutes. Environment Canada has confirmed that a tornado touched down in a community about 95 kilometers northwest of Quebec City last night. This is what the area looks like today. The twister damaged about 50 properties Much of it due to, as you can see there, uprooted trees. At least 3 people were taken to hospital with minor injuries. Environment Canada estimates winds reach speeds of up to 175 kilometers per hour. Although the forecast called for unpredictable weather, no tornado warnings were issued for this area. Jeff Harrington joins us now. Did you get a chance to take a look at this, Jeff?
Yeah, it's just incredible. So, Dwight, you were mentioning it just north of Trois-Rivières there in the Shawinigan area, not far from Shawinigan. Dwight, you mentioned the wind speeds 175 kilometers per hour. That puts us at an upper scale EF1. 177 is the max, so pretty close to an EF2, but of course it was an EF1. And these tornadoes do happen. You look at that outbreak that we had in September toward the Ottawa and Gatineau area, and then also Lachute, Quebec had a tornado in 2017 as well. Back here at home, nothing like that we've got to worry about. In fact, a very calm and dry and comfortable stretch of weather over the next little bit. Also promised you your carnival forecast earlier on in the broadcast. We'll get there. And also your holiday Monday forecast. Civic Day, Simcoe Day. We'll get you there in just a bit. But first, want to take a pulse at temperatures right now. Sitting at 26 degrees. We made it up to 27, and that's the magic number. That's our average temperature. Factor in the humidex, and really not much to speak about. Now, tonight, I did want to show you the dew point. So we'll explain this. Dew point currently sitting at 15 degrees in Toronto. The higher the dew point, the higher the humidity, the more uncomfortable it is. So at 15, we're pretty much in that zone that we call comfy. Just slight humidity, nothing major over what we've seen the last little while. Here's why we've got areas of high pressure deflecting systems to the north and south. I've taken this out now 48 hours because really not a whole lot to talk about between now and then. A lot of sun, average temperatures, and low humidity. It's not until Saturday we'll dial up that humidex just a bit. I do think potentially our next chance at rain, taking you out to Monday now, potentially by the afternoon and evening. Overnight, our temperatures are actually below average, if you can believe it. 14 for tomorrow, 27, slight humidex of 30 degrees. Here's how the next 5 days looks. Really, again, picture perfect. Thursday for the first day of August. Friday's looking good. And there we go. The Carnival forecast, Dwight, 29, feeling about 34, and just a slight risk of some showers for the civic holiday long weekend.
I'll be in shorts and sandals the whole weekend, Jeff.
And
looking
water.
Good. Thank you, buddy.
You got it.
After trading Marcus Stroman on Sunday, the Jays continued to purge the roster right up to today's 4 p.m. trade deadline. Pitchers Aaron Sanchez and Joe Biagini were traded to the Houston Astros. That means Justin Smoak is the only member of the Jays' 2015 division-winning squad left on the roster. The Jays had already shipped out relievers Daniel Hudson, David Phelps, and infielder Eric Sogard in recent days. All Mirvish theaters in Toronto will be dimming their marquee lights tonight. It's in honor of a Broadway legend who died today.
I really have put 40 years into this art form. I love it. I've weathered the failures, the bad years and the good ones.
Right on.
That was Harold Prince speaking to CBC back in 1993. The director and producer was responsible for hits like The Phantom of the Opera, Kiss of the Spider-Woman, and of course Evita. A number of his shows were staged at Mirvish Theaters in Toronto. Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber paying tribute to Prince today, saying, quote, "All of modern musical theater owes practically everything to him." Prince won 21 Tony Awards during his career. Harold Prince was 91 years old. We'll be right back. The battle between Democratic moderates and progressives continues tonight in the U.S. This second round of debates could be crucial for frontrunner Joe Biden, who is looking to get past his previous stumbles and cement his position. Lindsay Duncombe has more on last night's showdown.
Time now for opening statements.
Last night's debate laid bare the ideological divisions inside the Democratic Party at this moment. We saw the candidates in the progressive lane, Bernie Sanders from Vermont, Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, defend their policies that include universal health care, the idea of government-funded tuition, support for a new Green Deal, while moderates said that alienates, or those policies risk alienating voters who feel that it shifts the Democrats too far to the left. John Delaney, a candidate who's a former congressman, said that it's fairy tale economics. Here's how Elizabeth Warren responded to that.
You know, I don't understand why anybody goes to all the trouble of running for president of the United States just to talk about what we really can't do and shouldn't fight for.
The rebuttal to that argument for progressive policies will come tonight when former Vice President Joe Biden is on the stage. He's running as a moderate, but there are concerns that the frontrunner doesn't necessarily have the debating skills because of what happened in the last debate when he was called out by Senator Harris from California. Here's what that looked like.
You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Both Harris and Biden will be back on the debate stage together tonight. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
If you have a cherished ring, it might be one of your biggest fears. What would you do if it got stuck on your finger? Turns out some Canadian students have invented the solution. Details next. are you ready?
People on the beach, how we doing? If they can teach me to dance, they can teach anybody to dance.
Nice and hot, just like salsa.
Okay, check this out. A group of engineering students in Nova Scotia has invented a gadget that solves a pretty common problem. A ring getting stuck on your finger.
People sometimes come in seeking ring removal, but other times they have to get a ring removed because, say, they've broken the wrist and their fingers are swelling, and we have to take it off before it gets really stuck.
Wanted to have a cool project, and hey, if it had some commercial application, bonus. But this is kind of turned out incredibly well.
All right, here's how it works. This air pump adds a little pressure to the finger and fluid drains in just a few minutes. When they remove the device, the finger is smaller and the ring can be removed. It's actually already helped save a piece of Toronto sports history.
Gentleman had a Blue Jays championship ring on that had been stuck for years, and we sent a device up to Toronto to have him remove his ring with it before he had to go in for surgery. So he was able to save his ring without cutting it.
In August, the team will formally launch Ring Rescue, selling it to hospitals and jewelers. Surprised somebody hasn't thought of that before. Good on you, students. We could see how that would be kind of a cool thing. They might actually make some money out of it. Carnival weekend, I've been bugging you about the forecast. Let's get to it.
And we'll dial up the humidity for then.
Yes.
And you know, Dwight, some people's fingers with the humidity when it goes up
might swell up a little bit.
Swell up a bit, but not the case for us. Take a look at these temperatures. Actually a bit cool overnight, Dwight. Below average, 14 degrees, and that's because we've got that north wind pressing down temperatures. Good news, dry air mass, no humidity to speak of. For the first day of August tomorrow, 27 degrees. That's bang on average with a humidex of about 30. So comfortable really for the next 48 hours, Dwight. And then you were talking about it on Carnival on Saturday.
Yeah,
dial up the
parade.
humidity just a bit. So bring the water.
All right. We don't mind a cool overnight, hot during the day. Nice for sleeping in the evening. You've got it right on point. That's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Mike Wise will have your next local news at 11. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6.